Okay, let's call this regularly scheduled meeting of the South Tahoe Public Utility District to order, and we will say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So I'm not sure there is any audience, but if there is, are there any comments? I don't think so. And then corrections or additions to the agenda or consent calendar.
I'd like to pull items A and B for discussion, please.
On the consent? Okay, so that's check signing authority and financial transaction authorization?
Yeah.
Okay. And Gary, are you there? Is Gary there? So do we need a motion for that to do so?
Kelly, that motion will be made when we approve the consent calendar with changes as presented.
Changes as presented. Okay. I also am going to make an addition to the agenda under closed session item 13D and E, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. This requires a 4-5 vote of the board to be added to the agenda. This item was brought to the board's attention after the agenda posted and is time sensitive. So do we have a motion to adopt the consent calendar and agenda as corrected?
We need a separate motion to add the closed session items, and then we can approve the corrections to the agenda as presented.
Okay.
So let's do a separate, because we need a 4/5 vote on that. So let's do a separate.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to move that we add under closed session items 13, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. And this item was brought to the board's attention after the agenda was posted and is time sensitive.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. President Sheehan,
Yes.
Director Cefalu,
Yes.
Director Ramzos,
Yes.
Director Peterson,
Yes.
Director Exline.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimous.
Okay, and then do we have a motion to adopt the consent calendar and agenda as corrected?
I move that we adopt the consent calendar with the exception of items A and B.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. President Sheehan,
Yes.
Director Cefalu,
Yes.
Director Ramzos,
Yes.
Director Peterson,
Yes.
Director Exline.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimous.
Okay, so then, if I'm correct, we will go to what was item 4A, the check signing authority.
Yeah, maybe I can cut to the chase. My questions on both A and B are the same, and that is usually the auditor or the auditing firm comments on the checks and balances of financial management, and I'm just wondering, is this check signing authority and financial transaction authorization, have these procedures been commented upon by the auditors, and what have their comments been?
Every year, our auditors they kind of go through and they interview various departments within the district to get a better understanding of the internal controls that are in place. And if they find anything that they consider possibly a deficiency, they make recommendations and so forth. They have been very satisfied with our financial internal controls at the district for many years. The resolutions that actually you're seeing here today, they're not adding or subtracting any new individuals, or I shouldn't say that, any additional individuals. They're replacing they're replacing one position, which was the AGM position that used to be on here, with the human resource director. And on the other one, which is 4B, it's replacing the accounting supervisor that just hired Teresa Sherman with Greg Dupree, who's the new accounting supervisor.
Okay, very good. That answers my questions on these. With that clarification, I guess maybe other board members have questions on this. I'll pause on that before making a motion.
I do not.
Okay, I'll move approval of consent items A and B.
I'll second that.
And Dave, if you have any other, similar questions like this in the future, feel free to call me and we'll just chat about it.
Yeah, this one I wanted on the record because it is important to make sure these checks and balances are aired out, and oftentimes the auditor's reports are sometimes lost in the mix. So it's good to highlight that these things have been checked by independent auditors, and this is consistent with their advice. So appreciate that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. President Sheehan,
Yes.
Director Cefalu,
Yes.
Director Ramzos,
Yes.
Director Peterson,
Yes.
Director Exline.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimous.
Okay, that brings us to item 6A, sewer line repair and lateral abandonment services.
Hi, can you hear me, Kelly?
Yep.
Oh, good. Hi to the board members. My name is Doug Van Gordon. I'm the underground repair sewer supervisor. I've met some of you. I haven't met all of you. But this agenda item is about our yearly spot repair and lateral abandonments that keep our system from collapsing and cut down on I&I and root intrusion. The lateral abandonments have to do with the CTC. We have a contract with them where because of the bid is low again, we're able to do 20 lateral abandonments for them on some of the worst lots that we have found while we're TVing. That contract will be completed now that they have prices, and Chris Stanley will sign that, and we'll take off from there. Do you have any questions? Well, if not, I can go ahead and read the item as please authorize an award to Robotic Sewer Solutions, the lowest responsible bidder in the amount of $145,750, pending the 7-day bid protest period. Authorize staff to allow for changes, i.e. size estimates or repair site additions in the contract not to exceed an additional 10% of the contract price.
Well done. So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. President Sheehan,
Yes.
Director Cefalu,
Yes.
Director Ramzos,
Yes.
Director Peterson,
Yes.
Director Exline.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimous.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Doug. Okay, that leads us to payment of claims. I will approve payment of claims in the amount of $1,319,882.15.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. President Sheehan,
Yes.
Director Cefalu,
Yes.
Director Ramzos,
Yes.
Director Peterson,
Yes.
Director Exline.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimous.
Okay, item 7 is standing and ad hoc committee and liaison reports. I think I'll start. Chris and I and some members of staff had a budget review meeting yesterday. I am going to go ahead and start by saying that due to the fact that I feel that the COVID financial impact is not over, my feeling was that we should not have rate increases again this year. And that is what I advise staff. So that would kind of lead them back to the drawing board. Chris, I don't know if you want to chime in on this at all.
No, you did a great job, except for the fact that you and I both came to that conclusion separately and independently. And I agree with you. For now, that's my statement.
And I don't know, Paul, do you want to, address anything at all, Paul or John?
Overall, I felt it was a good meeting. Every year, of course, we have this meeting to go over the proposed budget for the following year with the finance committee, and just to go over as much detail as we possibly can to give them a full understanding of our position and why we're proposing certain things. The budget that we did propose was built with the 6% water increases and 5% sewer increases as authorized by the Prop 218 notice. And we discussed the impact of those being zeros to the capital improvement plan, as well as the long-term financial plan. And we were able to illustrate that, by having that zero in the first year, it actually impacts revenues about 20 million. So that's kind of described what our challenge was and what we would kind of have to do to make that balance out. And so we're looking at that right now and trying to put together a revised version. And we do plan to have a board workshop to go over all of this information at the beginning of April. And we're currently looking at either April 6th or April 7th. So watch for an email coming out from Susan Rasmussen from the finance department, because she'll be checking your availability on either of those days so we can get that scheduled.
And then just off the cuff, do any of the other 3 board members have any thoughts or input on rate increases this year?
Yeah, I guess I'll just say that, yeah, I think it's probably wise to, considering the COVID situation, that we probably should hold off on any kind of rate increases. And it's just kind of, the timing is just not right, I guess that's where I'm coming from. So I guess I'm kind of in alignment with you, Kelly, and Chris on that.
One other thing real quick, we did discuss, the possibility if it appears, within a few months, the economy is starting to look like it's improving, that, maybe we could move forward with a rate increase mid-year, which for us, mid-year is January 1, and look at that as a possibility.
Yeah, I'm open to that.
I'll chime in. Yeah, I'll chime in. I tend to agree with every comment that's been stated and what you just said as well, Paul. I mean, availability of vaccines and things will dictate, January, no, but just to have that option is nice. But other than that, I agree kind of with the sentiment of everybody.
Yeah, and I guess I would agree as well. We've still got the program for offering people relief from their STPUD assessments, and it would be kind of inconsistent to be offering a relief program at the same time asking for a rate increase. So I think it's consistent. As long as we're going to have that program operational, we should hold off on any rate increases.
Okay.
Yeah,
John,
Dave.
Was there any
Go ahead.
conversation about, I guess, the COVID relief program and maybe some iterations on that? You probably could just say something like that, John.
Yeah, I was going to bring up a few other points, including that one. We had some discussion on how to modify or sort of unwind our customer assistance program in the future. So we're going to be putting together some thoughts on that and bringing that forward to the board probably in the next meeting or two. And I think, well, we'll bring those details when we get a little more financial information. But I think we all understand there's kind of this divergence between the people and the businesses that are impacted due to COVID. So on one hand, we want to give all the relief we can to those in need, and on the other hand, we don't want to be so broad that we're just kind of giving away money, funds to people and businesses that don't need it, but that causes pretty significant financial harm to the district over time. So yeah, look for that information to come forward, and maybe some, I guess now that we're on that topic, well, maybe we'll save that detail for when we speak to that specifically, but we're tracking the sales tax and the TOT tax at the city. We're tracking unemployment numbers in El Dorado County and actually South Lake Tahoe. Right now, South Lake Tahoe is looking at about 7% unemployment, or 7.8, at least slightly higher than El Dorado County as a whole. So, and Paul, I think you found like 10 years data on that, so we can kind of present that information over time. When I look at our water and wastewater flows, I just received the summary report from February, and this has pretty much been tracking this way for the past 3 or 4 months. Our water production has been up probably 10% consistently for many months over recent years and over our 10-year trend. So in terms of demand for our services, they're higher. And the wastewater side, the wastewater bounces around basically due to groundwater and storm events. So not really a good tracking mechanism this time of year for what the community is doing out there. So those are some data points to consider in terms of COVID relief, and we'll bring some options forward in the near future for the board to consider. And then one other point from yesterday's meeting I think I wanted to bring up is the element of connection fees. And this will be another element of discussion at our board workshop, potentially on, I think Paul mentioned the 6th or the 7th of next month. But on the last downturn, our connection fees were reduced twice, essentially cut in half. So the board may want to consider getting those back where they were. And we have some background study and data to support that discussion. So talk about rate increases or not, connection fees, talk about the customer assistance program in the near future.
Yeah, if I may, I'd like to expand a little bit so you guys have a little more backstory on what we talked about. And I know I just basically agreed with Kelly, but the fact is there's a couple things that actually kind of highlighted, one being property tax. Paul has usually baked in about a 2.5% increase year over year for property taxes. It's around 5.5%. Well, it is 5.5% this year. So a significant increase in property tax revenue, which actually directly affects our revenue. The other thing that we discussed is that while Paul and John and the staff have to look at the long-term effects of a rate increase, I think there are so many variables that go into making that for us, shorter term in this case is more appropriate because we don't know what sales tax, connection fees, increases in consumptive revenue are going to be. So that's kind of how we came up with our ability to say, hey, we don't feel that it's right to have a rate increase this year. And just to go on the record, I'm not in favor of midterm rate increase at all. While you guys can discuss it and we can decide as a group, I do not think that is a good idea. And furthermore, we did offer up the idea of revisiting the connection fees, because we cut them twice over the last however many years it's been. Paul can tell you. The original cost was $49.30. We cut them twice. They're now $27.50, I believe. Is that right, Paul?
Close, $27.65.
Yeah. So if we were to remove that and put them back at $49.50, the effect of that is around $900,000. If we just went straight ahead and raised rates, we're looking at about $1.5 million, and I'm generalizing. So we would almost eliminate, with property tax revenues and an increase in connection fees in some way, we could pretty much erase that effect of no rate increase this year. So a little backstory and a little more thought on that for you guys.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chris.
I just wanted to add one. I think as we see in the next coming months, especially as the adult population becomes completely vaccinated, I think what we're going to see in the months after that is the folks in our community that are going to be systemically dealing with economic hardship, because at some point that is the new normal, right? And I think we've all come to accept that, the vaccination period and what that frees us to do. And so at some point we're going to have to deal with the situation of kind of our financial obligations to the future meets that the group of people that are going to need systemic or are going to need continual help financially into perpetuity. And so I don't know exactly where that lands. And so it's not really a disagreement or agreement with anyone, I suppose. But I think there's going to be an interesting nexus between those 2 points in the months ahead. And that goes directly back into kind of our rate assistance program and how we deal with it. So I would be very conscious in how we, or I guess the groups of people that are going to continue to need assistance, because I think that research is going to benefit us when we look at our assistance program into the future as well.
Okay, does anybody have anything else they want to say on this issue? How about any other reports from any other committees or liaisons?
I can give one if you like. The System Efficiency and Sustainability Committee met on Monday. We kind of talked through where they are with identifying metrics for just kind of tracking baseline conditions and efficiency. And so Ryan Lee's working through a gap analysis to really kind of elevate which metrics they think they should be tracking over the long term. And then Shelley talked through looking at conducting a fleet analysis and kind of looking at from a 10-year standpoint and seeing what kind of transition there might be available for the district and moving towards electric vehicles. Of course, keeping in mind, our conditions up here and being reasonable and sensible about investments into more of an e-fleet. And then Shelley gave us an update on the water conservation legislation. It sounds like the district's totally engaged on that and staying abreast, and very fortunate that we're in the room and helping them guide through the numbers and targets they're setting for us in terms of water conservation, which is great. And let's see, we just kind of talked through some other things. Shelley's basically, I think we had mentioned either on the board meeting or some other meeting, but just the whole suite of different plans that the district has in their hands, and they're getting those organized into a more of a coordinated spreadsheet so they can kind of better sense of kind of the realm and the world that of all these plans that the district's dealing with. And then talk through some ideas on doing a bit more on kind of talking through our sustainability reporting efforts, and again, starting small and making sure that we're just talking high points on all the good things that the district's doing in terms of their contributions to sustainability efforts here in Tahoe. And then touch briefly on the Department of Energy Connected Communities grant. So apparently that's been submitted. And John, you might be able to say a little bit more about that. We didn't talk too in depth about that, but that was definitely something we mentioned. Did you want to mention anything on that?
Yeah, I just want to say that the city has received a 2-week extension for the submittal of that application. So so we're continuing to work with the city on developing that application, and we've provided some language to them to make that application more inclusive to potential future district efficiency projects, and they're incorporating that language into the energy management write-up, which is part of that application. So we're getting our information in there. There's a 2-week extension, so we'll be submitting that soon. However,
Cool.
Looking
and
good.
then just on my liaison duties with Alpine County, I participated in the Alpine Biomass Committee meeting on, was it Tuesday night? And there was a presentation on aspen management, and it was pretty poorly attended. I guess for me, I'm just seeing there's probably some opportunity for us to further engage on that biomass committee. They're really engaged on forest restoration projects, things like that we might be able to partner with them on that. So more to come on that.
Thank you, Shane. Anybody
Shane?
else?
Well, quick question real quick for Shane. On the efficiency committee, are you, is your committee also addressing staffing efficiency or human resources efficiency, or is it focusing primarily on non-staff issues?
Yes, it is dealing with staffing, finding, I guess, more efficient workflows for staff, starting to get the data collected to better inform where there might be some opportunities to increase staff efficiency. So yeah, that's part of the conversation. It hasn't been, this is the second meeting so far of the committee, so we're still digging into it, but that's definitely, I think, part of the mission of the committee is to kind of get at that as well.
Good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a brief report. The Aqua DC conference was on February 24th, and I listened in on that. It was, unfortunately, it was predictably kind of beige. It was a parade of elected officials saying next to nothing really in the span of 4 hours. So unfortunately, I don't have anything really to report. No nuggets of that are really things to highlight. It would have been, I think it would have been better if that conference had brought out some of the committee staff, people that could talk about some substantive issues, but really it was just kind of political speeches for the vote.
Was there any mention of impending legislation, infrastructure legislation, anything like that?
They just talked about the things that you would read in the paper.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing that you can't get out of the paper.
Sorry, Dave. So was all the political lobbying for kind of the vote at Aqua? They were all jockeying for some vote at Aqua?
No, they just went through the kind of a chosen group of elected representatives in Congress, and just had them. They didn't really give them much of a guideline as to what they wanted them to talk about. But so, Jim Costa came out and he said his piece for a few minutes, and then he left, and and then Garamendi came on, and it was just kind of a parade of political speeches.
I can mention one perhaps resource that you and the rest of the board may be interested in. ENS is our lobbyist, our federal lobbyist, and they provide actually typically a weekly newsletter that might provide some of the more background or detailed information that you might be interested in. If you're, I can forward that. Why don't I forward the most recent example of that to the entire board? And each one of you can let me know if you'd like to remain on that mailing list.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any board member reports? Anyone? Okay, I guess that takes us to El Dorado Water Agency Purveyor report.
Yeah, there hasn't been a meeting since our last board meeting. So there's one scheduled on the 10th of March. So I'll be able to report at the next meeting.
All right, great. Thank you, Gabe. And that leads us to the general manager report.
Okay, thank you. Got a few items to go here. Actually, jumping to the last item, Tahoe Keys. I don't really have much of an update today. I was expecting some field information to come in earlier this week, and that is still in progress. So I won't have any update under Tahoe Keys today, but I expect to have that next time. So go back up to staffing. I've got quite a few updates for you for the human resources analyst. We interviewed 5 candidates last week, made a selection, and that is now in the pre-employment process. So we are planning a much anticipated start towards the end of the month. Looking forward to that. And we're currently advertising for a customer service representative through March 16th. For underground repair water, the advertising period has closed. We're planning to select the top candidates for interviews later this month. And it looks like we got a really good turnout for this. Also advertising for a part-time lab aide position today through March 22nd. This opening is due to the previous lab aide interviewing and then being selected for the full-time lab tech position. And that was last month. So that's our current recruiting efforts. And then I had one last item I was wanting to talk to the board about today and open for a little discussion if desired. And that's the board's level of involvement in the hiring of temporary and seasonal employees. And this was a topic we talked about a little bit yesterday at Finance Committee. And what we came up with was, and I just wanted to run it by the full board for concurrence, is, Paul and I will bring a summary of all proposed temporary and seasonal employees forward during the budget process for discussion, and then essentially for approval when that budget is passed, if there's any changes incorporated. And thereafter, for the remainder of that fiscal year, I don't plan to bring every individual temporary hiring decision forward to the board during the year, as long as they are within my purchasing authority. So does this type of process and this level of oversight work for the board? Or is there any objections to this type of process? Thank you.
No objections, but I can think it gets at a little bit what Dave was indicating in that kind of workforce efficiencies, and that is that something where you're looking at, increasing capacity to otherwise, I guess, deal with full-time workforce, I guess. I don't know. I guess I'm wondering if that's kind of part of the conversation. Maybe not necessarily. I think it's totally, I'm on board with you making the call on temp and seasonal employees, but just curious about kind of that realm of things.
Yeah, we can talk about this in more detail at the budget workshop. We'll bring out that summary of potential positions, proposed positions. And we have a lot of that as seasonal workers, during the construction season, the summer season. That's a great time to get work done, but we don't want that full-time workforce going through all 12 months. So it's an effective way for us to get more work done without adding more full-time positions. It's more cost-effective, and especially cost-effective relative to our work and our seasonality in Tahoe. Okay.
John, I think I just in my own business, I've had a lot of success in hiring interns they're cheap. You get some work out of them, but almost the biggest benefit is it's a tryout for a full-time position later. It's a really good way to, have an extended interview with a potential candidate. So.
Exactly. We see that a lot, especially with the field crews. When we go out for recruitments, a lot of those, I would guess probably about half of our successful candidates have been with us in the seasonal position. So it gives us 1 or 2 or 3 seasons to really gauge how someone works out. Okay, sounds good. And I'll bring that forward at the budget workshop. So next item, let's talk about COVID-19 a little bit. And obviously continued positive news. El Dorado County dropped to the red tier on, I think that was Monday. And I understand we're on the Barton call on Tuesday. We think that might even drop to the orange tier next week. So very optimistic there. Good news at the district, looking good. We have really just one person that's out due to COVID, and he's actually better and planning to return to work on Monday. So come Monday, we hope to have no one out due to COVID. And to date, we've had a total of 7 cases at the district. And we have a COVID team internally. We met this morning. We talked about dropping our own risk response from level 3 to level 2.5. And this would mean getting our field crews back to regular 10-hour shifts on April 1st, if all goes well through the remainder of the month. And perhaps opening the doors to customer service at the end of the month. And we can consider a return to in-person board meetings next month as well. We'll see how it goes for the next few weeks. Kelly, we can discuss this today or next meeting as you prefer.
Yeah, I think what I want to say about that is obviously I'm sitting here in the boardroom all by myself and I'm lonely, and I do prefer the meetings in person. That's just my feeling. But then we also have to, be mindful of other people's, what they feel is best for them and safest for them. So I just think I just would like everybody to kind of think about it and kind of have that April, the first board meeting of April in mind, depending upon, what happens if we go to orange, or if, something, God forbid, if we take a step backwards or whatever. So I think we can just kind of think about it. Everybody think about it, unless someone has something they'd like to say right now.
Yeah, we can keep the webinars going as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, the only thing I might suggest is whenever we go back full time, to also leave kind of a call-in option. You know what I mean? If someone is out of town, or, as I think about this more and more, if you get sick the night before, I mean, I used to always just power through, right? I think most of us probably did. Now, kind of that mentality, I'm having second thoughts just as the last, year unfolded. So I'm kind of with Kelly. I miss people too. It'd be lovely to be with you today, Kelly. But keep an option for, just to have in case.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, just one more item, CEO roundtable. If the district is a member of the Tahoe Chamber, and they are hosting a CEO roundtable tomorrow morning, and I will be the featured speaker, the presenter. I'm going to talk about the district, our system challenges, and really just generally promoting the district as a proactive community partner. And looking at the invite list, it's a long list of over 20 area CEOs on the invite list, both in California and Nevada, public and private. So appreciate the invitation from Steve Teixeira and the chamber. Looking forward to it. Kelly?
Yeah, I'm sure you'll do a wonderful job.
Hey, John, can you send, is it a public meeting? Is there opportunity for somebody to jump on if they wanted to, if they could, if they had the time?
Yeah, I can send you that invite. Would anybody else be interested? I'll send it to the full board.
Yeah, that's good. Good idea. Okay, that brings us to staff and attorney reports. And I believe we have the 2019 water audit results, and that's Steve Caswell.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, and what screen are you seeing of mine? Good, that's the one I wanted. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm here to talk about our 2019 water audit results. This is a statutory requirement. There was basically a law passed in 2015, Senate Bill 555, that requires any water agency that serves more than 3,000 customers or delivers 3,000 acre feet per year to submit an annual water audit. Basically, it looks at our production versus our consumption and looks at our overall water losses. I've given this report typically in the fall to the board, but I delayed it a little bit this year because there is definitely some more movement on the regulatory side, and I was hoping to have more information for you, but it seems like it keeps getting delayed. So I said, well, I'm going to do it now, and we'll talk about it, the regulatory stuff as it comes out. So, so this is the fourth water audit. We have done 2016, 17, 18, and now 19. 2020, we will submit that in October of this year. So that is still in progress. And so we don't have that one completed just yet. So jumping right in to the results, really the main thing to focus on is that top line, the real losses per service connection per day. That is what the regulatory standard will be based on. And I'll talk a little bit more later about what that potentially could look like for us. So I have statewide results for 2018. I don't have them for 2019, but you can see the first column is the median out of 325 water suppliers in the state. Second column is the mean, and then you can see us, our numbers from 16, 17, 18, and 19. And you'll notice that 19 had a pretty significant drop. And unfortunately, that's not real. What that is as we've done more of these audits, we have refined our methods. And so the way that we were estimating our unmetered customers was underestimating those results, or those amounts in those previous years. And so I did go back and redo the audits for those years with the new methodology that I used in 2019. And actually 2019 is our highest year of losses if I do that for all of them. But I left the numbers in here because this is what was reported to the state. And so these are the numbers that the state has. Another thing to note is, you can see the annual cost of our real losses on the third row. And we're right around the median statewide. But you can see that if we were to eliminate all of our water losses, we're saving, between $150,000 and $200,000 a year. So on the regulatory side, since the law was passed in 2015 and the state has been working on developing what these standards are going to actually be, they've held 8 workshops with stakeholders, and I've also been involved with some other calls with people like Aqua and AWWA with state water board members to discuss some of the concerns with the regulations and some of the things that didn't make a ton of sense. But I recognize it's hard to make a statewide regulation in such a large state. So we are tied in to the process and working on helping to shape that as well, similar to what Shelley's doing on the water conservation side. The state has developed an economic model, and that's what actually calculates the standard. And it uses, they started off with default values that they had based off of our water audits, but it also has the ability for us to provide our specific data, which does affect the standard somewhat. So I've been playing with the model, or at least the one that's published so far, and gone through and identified what data we have that we can easily provide, what data we don't have that we might want to think about providing, and what data it doesn't really matter if we have it or not, because the default value doesn't really our number wouldn't really change, or the impacts from the changing that number don't really make a big impact. So there are two criteria that we're really focusing on that can have a fairly significant impact on our standard. And I have a meeting next week with the state to discuss those and to hopefully get their buy-off on our methodology, because if ultimately it comes down that they need to accept our agency-specific data, and if they do, that can help us a lot. And if they don't, then I'll show you on the next slide, or the next two slides. So the state has published proposed standards using their default values, not the agency-specific numbers. And so over the 3 years that the state had data for, which was 2016 through 2018, our losses were 71, on average, were 71.5 gallons per connection per day. And you can see that we are near the top, which isn't the greatest. And then with the proposed standards, with the default values, they want us to get down to 23 gallons per connection per day, which is a 68% reduction. And you can also still see that, you know, we're still not, we're still on that tail end of that bell curve. I mean, the bell curve is a lot tighter for sure, but it could be worse, I guess, is the takeaway from that. It's not great, but it could be worse. Really where we are right now, the state has had a peer review done of the economic model, and they are reviewing those results, and will potentially, they said they were thinking of having another workshop in March to go over those results with the stakeholders. And then the formal rulemaking process, they are hoping to start that in about 2 months. And what that does is that gives for us 45 days, a comment period, and it's open to all the public at this point. And we can submit our utility-specific data at that time. So we need to be ready to submit it basically when this formal rulemaking process starts. And as I mentioned, we are actively engaged, and I do have a meeting next week with the state to hopefully get further along in this. And then the other thing to note is this is supposed to be in, we will have to be in compliance by January of 2028. So that is only 7 years, less than 7 years away, that we would have to reduce our water losses by that much. And so that's all I had for today. If there's any questions, please let me know.
So Steve, a couple of meetings ago, I think that, there was a report that you guys are getting some sort of a satellite-based analysis of water leakage. And that's scheduled for the summer?
I think we had talked about doing, I think that's actually going to happen next year, not this year. And so we would do one in the spring and one in the fall to, you know, spring, hopefully we'd find the leaks, and then fall, we'd show that we'd fixed them. But I believe we were targeting next year for that, not this year.
I guess with that in mind, 2028 is going to come kind of quickly.
Yes, it is.
So how much intelligence do we have on our leakage? Do we have a pretty good idea where it's coming from, or we still need to kind of dig into that remote sensing solution for identifying where the leaks are?
We have, go ahead, sorry.
No, I guess, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I was gonna just follow up with something else, but go ahead.
So we do have really good information of our water leaks for the last, I think, 12 years. We've got them all tracked in our GIS system. We are also using an AI software called Baseform that takes all of our data and helps predict what's going to happen. And we've had really good results with that. Like we initially gave them 8 years of data, but we held back 2018 and 2019 and asked them, to predict where the leaks were going to be in 2018 and 2019. And their results were very close to what actually happened. So we're pretty confident that that's going to be a really great tool to help us identify those pipes that are most likely to fail and have the biggest consequence of failure. And that'll help make sure that our capital plan is focusing on, where we get the biggest bang for our buck, basically.
And Ryan Lee is scheduled to bring more of that water leak detail to the board at a presentation at the next board meeting.
Yeah, he'll be giving an update on what our water leaks look like for 2020.
I think, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but about 90% of our leaks occur on our steel water lines, which represent, I think, about 40% of our entire water system. I think we're 50, it's either 52 or 54% steel. And yeah, it's over 90% of our leaks are on those lines. So we definitely are, that helped narrow it down to the steel lines, but it's still it's over half of our system. So it's still quite a bit of piping that we are trying to make sure we target the correct ones.
So I have a little story on water leaks. I lived on I had a little stream behind my house down in Granite Bay, and we had a full year stream, and we had otters that came through there, and crawdads and fish and everything else. It was wonderful. Well, one day the water turned chocolate, and my wife and I went upstream, and we found that there was a leak in the water district's water main, and it was washing sediment into the creek. So we called the water district, and well, when they came out and fixed that leak, they also fixed the other 11 under that siphon, and it dried up the creek. So we no longer had this beautiful, creek with otters in it anymore. So,
Winter wetlands.
yeah.
Okay, is that it? Thank you, Steve. And no one else, any other questions for Steve? Okay. Well, you see the past and future meetings, and now we're going to go into closed session. Okay, so we're coming out of closed session. There's no action taken, so there's nothing to report. And with that, I adjourn this meeting.